So for folks that have seen the roadmap before, we've had this phrase up for a little over a year now, but we like to talk about these three keywords when we're thinking about building Looker: access, analytics, action. So at the highest level, we want to make data accessible to everyone in the organization. That's all of the stuff that we're working on around modeling and just making data accessible to end users, usability, all of that type of stuff. That second layer of analytics, it's really, we want visualization to be great. We want all of the out-of-the-box reporting to be strong. And we want you to be able to do more complex things with data, so things like merge results. And then on the action side, we really want to make sure that we're continuing to more deeply integrate into people's workflows. So that's the Action Hub, as you guys have seen. That's all of the API stuff. And that's extending what the embedded product does. And so we're always thinking about these three things. The second sort of cross-tab of the matrix is we're really always thinking about the product for a variety of users at the same time. So we want a great product for everyone in an organization. And a great product for everyone in an organization is not the same product for everyone. We know that analysts need power. They need depth of complexity. They need to be able to do everything that they want to do without point-and-click UIs, kind of all that extensibility. But end users need a very different experience. They want simplicity. They want things to look really nice. And so we're always focused on balancing those needs. And I think over the lifetime of Looker, we focused a lot on you guys and data analysts and making everyone in here more leveraged to serve people at the bottom of the pyramid. We are focused a lot on trying to make the end user experience really great. So that's where a lot of the focus is right now. So when I sort of look at the next 15 months, so kind of through 2019, a lot of our focus sort of buckets into these three layers. So the first one is at the base. It's making development and administration scalable, powerful. Kind of, we always laugh a little bit every year because the modeling features that we come out with might be more trivial from an engineering effort standpoint than some of the big things that we do in the front end. But I remember like jump to in the IDE, where you could click on a field and then find out where it was referenced, was like the biggest cheer last year. So we want to make sure that all of the ergonomics of developing are great. We also want to make sure that reporting looks good and feels good. So you're going to see a lot in here building on what Ariel was talking about earlier in the day about reporting and visualization and just making Looker pretty. And we do want to layer in analytics features there as well. And then the last one is that we want to keep building on the platform message that Frank talked about. We need the extensibility, and we need to be able to deliver these complete user experiences. So we want out-of-the-box pivot tables and reporting and kind of all the basics to be great. And we want you guys to take all of those pieces and be able to build much more complete experiences. So from the development and administration side, again, kind of three buckets. So the first, developer experience, administration, kind of building on the things that Sandra was talking about earlier today, and then performance and security. So from the developer experience side, we're doing a lot of different pieces this year. So we already talked about foldering, kind of continuing to build out the IDE and make it really effective is where a lot of the effort is going to continue. So we saw folders here. We want to continue looking at developing the IDE and making it great. We've talked a lot about project import and extensions across projects and being able to import and work with different kind of Git layers underneath your core model. We need to keep making sure that the IDE is supporting that type of stuff. Sorry, I'm going to jump around a lot because I can never remember. The second kind of major project that we're working on this year is this idea of, so I talked about change management and extensibility, but I was jumping to content portability and versioning at scale. So for folks that have used Looker for a long time, you probably are familiar with this idea of LookML dashboards and kind of front-end dashboards. And as kind of developers in Looker, you're making a trade-off of features right now when you use those different tools. Obviously, building things in the front end is great. It's easy. It's WYSIWYG. And users will kind of always continue doing that. Building dashboards in LookML is versioned. It's extensible. And you get a lot of that power behind the scenes. A lot of what we're focused on in 2019 is trying to unify those two systems together. So the ultimate vision is to be able to take the entire modeled backend, so all of the Git that you have right now in your model, and actually combine that with all of the content in your instance and version it as well. So we want everything in the Looker instance to be completely portable at scale. So you're not kind of making a trade-off between those two things. They just are one and the same thing, and you're making a decision on kind of when to back things up, when to move things across instance, and just really giving you that kind of robust experience at scale. Kind of to that scale message, continuing to work on that content validator that you saw earlier today. We're putting out the beta now, and you can see that obviously like we need to work on UI here, but really getting to a place where all of the versioning and all of the change management is super effective. We want content validator to be much faster. We want model validation to be super fast. And we want your data to be correct. So unifying those systems into really effective workflows. So as you're developing, you have a lot of trust over what's going on in the instance. And it's also just not painful to use. We don't want validation to feel painful. We just want it to be happening, and we want it to feel good, and we want the data to be right. So we talked about database support. In the last year, I think Druid is in the last year. Obviously, we announced Mongo. But continuing to build out this data set, I think ClickHouse is one of the next databases on the radar. We're listening for you guys to tell us what databases matter and what we need to support. We're only as good as these different layers underneath us. So we're obviously always committed to continuing to build out database support. Did I leave anything out? Validation, we already talked about that. So the next level is, again, continuing to build on a lot of the things that Sandra showed you earlier today. So I know we launched a lot of things early today. We don't view releasing product as sort of landing a thing and then going and running away and doing something completely different. We want to make sure that these things that we're building are functional and that they're working for you guys, and that if we haven't completely solved the problem, that we're staying and we're actually solving the problem that we set out to solve. So from the administration side, we want to continue building out that suite of dashboards and tools for you guys to better administrate an instance. So I think ultimately our goal here is that every single one of you that is a Looker administrator is getting content from us on a weekly basis that is easy to go make your end user's experience better. And so some of that you saw around just who's using the product and how are they using it. But it's going to get more tactical around what is getting used in the model and how is it getting used. How can we kind of proactively recommend how you make the instance more functional for your users? Like ultimately, we want you guys to think, but we don't want you to have to think about things that aren't hard. We want to be able to remove that burden from you guys and just proactively tell you how to make the user experience better. And then speed at scale. So kind of as Looker has matured as a company, we've supported larger and larger installations of users. We want to continue making it so that managing an instance with 1,000 users or 5,000 users and all of the schedules that come along with that and all of the querying that comes along with that is as easy as a 10-person company kind of where everyone can talk to each other. So that's bulk scheduler administration. That's bulk user management. We want to make sure that all of those bulk actions are working really well. So the last is the performance and the security side. And there's kind of a variety of pieces here. So again, Ariel, before the presentation crashed, front-end performance is really important to us. We need to make sure the core app is fast and feels good. Part of where we want to turn in 2019 is to looking at database performance a little bit more. So we talked about the intelligent caching pieces where we're giving you guys more controls over what's in the cache. We want to keep building those out so you can decide whether scheduled content, for example, might use the cache or not, and just really making sure that Looker is working with your database as well as it possibly can. But kind of the next evolution of that, this doesn't really explain it, but it looks nice, is sort of being able to understand when you need to hit row-level data and when you don't. So kind of everyone here has gotten a Looker sales pitch at some point, and getting to row level is important. Having all of the data available to your users is valuable. I think we can all agree on that. But when most people are just asking for roll-ups by day or different pieces like that, hitting 10,000 rows instead of a couple billion rows is probably a good idea. That's going to make everyone's experience better. And we do have people doing kind of crazy stuff behind the scenes. We have a LookML argument called inquiry, where you can sort of write your own intelligent logic. But I think ultimately we want to get to a place where users are just getting their data back more quickly, and you guys can go focus on other activities. So being able to figure out when rollups need to exist, persisting them back to your database and letting people share them, and making that work with all of the caching underneath Looker. It's obviously a really big problem, and a lot of other BI tools have solved that with their in-memory database, and we need to be a little bit different and work with the databases that you guys are working with. But a lot of that work is how we make the end user experience better, not just on our app performance, but on the database performance. So that's a big focus of what we want to handle in the next year. And then continuing to build out our security certification. So we just completed the SOC 2 Type 2. This year, we're looking at both HIPAA and PCI compliance. So for folks that are on-premise because of security requirements, we are going to meet all of those needs so that you guys can stop worrying about the operations of the instance, and we can kind of take that back from you.